Hey guys, this is Christian Sanger, host of Holy City Center Radio. Just a quick note before this episode. There was some technical difficulties. I don't want to say it was operator error on my end because I don't want to admit I did something wrong. But something happened. Something happened with the recording. It was very likely my fault in some capacity. At one point, recording just stopped. I had to pick up where I had left off. And unfortunately, some of the settings were messed up. And so all of a sudden you're going to notice a pretty marked difference in the sound quality. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that randomly the sound quality gets a little worse. I don't think it's horrible, but you can be the judge of that. But just wanted to give you a heads up that there will be a change just randomly in the middle of the podcast. That is not the fault of my producer or anyone but me and my recording equipment today. So just wanted to let you know, I apologize. Bear with it. There's some good information on the show, and we'll get back to normal on Monday with with the normal quality you're used to. So just want to give you a heads up. So here it is. Enjoy the episode. Holy City Center Radio is episode 158, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Friday, August 11th, 2023. It's Friday. That means it's the weekend. And if you need plans, be sure to go to holycitycenter.com/events. You can also just go to the main webpage and see the weekend events post right there for you. You'll be able to figure out what you're going to do this weekend in case you don't have any plans, see what's going on around town. And you can get some amazing plans on Charleston's best events calendar. Now that shameless promotion is out of the way, one little thing I've done this week here in Holy City Centerland, as I've alluded to on past podcasts, I did go to a media opening type event for Charleston Hemp Collective's new location on James Island. They're going to be in the same, plaza, same building that the Charleston Sports Pub is in, off of Maybank Highway. And the thing that makes this location different than any other, CBD hemp type store dispensary is that they are going to have what is called a dry bar inside. Dry bar, of course, meaning non-alcoholic drinks. So you'll be able to go get a mocktail there. They're made with all sorts of different ingredients, including non-alcoholic spirits. Yes, if you didn't know, they do exist. There's non-alcoholic rums and gins and things like that to try to duplicate the flavor of some of these liquors so you can make mocktails. But the other ingredient is that Charleston Hemp Collective will be using High Rise Beverage Company's seltzer drinks. If you're not familiar with that company, they make seltzer, flavored seltzers, all sorts of different fruit flavors, but they're all infused with either CBD or Delta 8 or Delta 9. For those who don't know, all three of those are a version of cannabis. CBD doesn't have any of the, kind of psychedelic type. Basically, you can't get high, is what I'm trying to say with CBD. Supposedly, Delta 8 and Delta 9 have a little bit of THC, which is the ingredient in cannabis that gets people high. There is some kind of limit percentage wise that, these CBD or Delta products, they can have a very, very small percentage of THC. And whatever that limit is, supposedly Delta 8 and Delta 9 have it. So technically, and I've heard people say, by drinking or smoking or whatever, ingesting Delta 8 or Delta 9 in whatever capacity, some people said they do feel a little high almost. They do feel a little, goofy or relaxed or whatever it may be. So, everybody's different. I've also had people tell me they didn't feel anything with any of these products. But the bottom line is, these mocktails they're making with the High Rise beverages, are going to be infused with one of those things, as well as, whatever other ingredients they put in it. And I was surprised. The drinks were very, very good. With mocktails, you really got to hit it out of the park, because I feel like sometimes with alcohol, you order a cocktail or whatever. I mean, there's picky people, of course. But I feel like most people are like, whatever, as long as the alcohol's in it and I'm getting that buzz, that's all they care about. So if the flavor is not the best, they don't really care necessarily. But if you're drinking a mocktail, this thing needs to taste good, especially if you're going to be spending, like $12 on a drink. And I tried a handful of them, a couple sips and actually two full drinks, and they were great. I felt a little relaxed after drinking them. I didn't really feel much of anything else, so I didn't feel high or anything crazy like that. But the drinks were very, very tasty, and it seemed like everybody there also enjoyed them. It was kind of had like a tropical vibe to it. The drinks were kind of like a tiki bar, vibe almost. Not on the campy kind of side of it, but just like the flavors and the bright colors of these mocktails. It felt very beachy. But yeah, it was cool. It was something different. I hope they do well. I'm interested to see how many people go in just to go to the dry bar, or if it's going to be more of someone coming in to get some kind of CBD product, whether it's gummies or whatever, a tincture or whatever it may be, and end up trying one of those mocktails. But yeah, it was good. I recommend it. If you are someone who likes CBD or Delta 8, Delta 9 type products, this is a great chance to try them in a different way. And again, really tasty. So I certainly enjoyed that. And they are opening today when you're listening to this, Friday. So on James Island, Charleston Hemp Collective with the High Rise Cannabis Dry Bar are open today. There's more information in the show notes. So that's kind of like news. I told you what I did and told you that the business is opening today. So since we're on that path, let's just keep on going. Let's get into the news. On some previous podcasts, I've talked about the South Carolina Freedom Caucus and some of the things the shenanigans, I should say, that they were up to during this past year or so. And one of those things was suing school districts, that they claim were teaching CRT. Again, quick recap for those who still don't know: CRT stands for critical race theory. What it actually is, prior to these, conservative media, your Fox Newses of the world and politicians and stuff getting a hold of the term, what it actually is a graduate level theory course. Graduate level meaning obviously in college. So undergrad is done. You then may take a graduate level course that teaches CRT. It talks about implicit and explicit biases in all sorts of different things, but a big focus is on government and the judicial system, and that's what it is. It's been morphed, as we all know, into this boogeyman, into something that it's not, and has just become a kind of a catch-all term, to just basically say things I don't want my kid to learn. Kind of like how woke, the term woke has been completely misused, and now that kind of is what it means as well, as just stuff I don't like. It's just a buzzy catchword that people on the news, politicians or anchors can just tag, hey, this politician is woke, or this politician believes in CRT. And although no one really knows what that means, they just know that means I'm not supposed to like that person. So no surprise, the most conservative section of the South Carolina House, this Freedom Caucus group, is all in on the culture war stuff and the CRT. And so they sued a school district, and we talked about that in a previous podcast. It was the Lexington School District and how they decided to settle this lawsuit. And the Post and Courier had a great editorial about, hey, it seems like when the school settles a lawsuit, it makes it seem like they're admitting fault in this situation. But in actuality, they didn't have to admit fault, and they didn't have to pay anything. They basically, as you'll hear coming up, they just had to cut ties with this group that they had contracted. But they didn't admit any wrongdoing. They didn't find any examples of anything that this Freedom Caucus was alleging, and basically was just a waste of time and money, and they didn't want to waste any more of either, and settled. And now we know exactly how much money was wasted. So according to a report from the state newspaper, the Lexington 1 school district spent nearly $60,000 defending this lawsuit that was filed last year by the South Carolina Freedom Caucus. As I mentioned, they are a group of ultra-conservative state legislators, who claim the district was breaking state law by teaching critical race theory. It is not against the law, by the way, to teach critical race theory. It is against the law to teach racist concepts. There is no evidence that that is what happened. The district denied the caucus's claims from the start, decided to try to fight this at first, and then decided forget it. They were forced to release the legal costs this week in response to a Freedom of Information Act request from the state newspaper. That's why this information got out. So back in November, the Freedom Caucus filed a civil case against Lexington 1, again, alleging the school district was teaching CRT and therefore breaking state law and violating the state constitution. The lawsuit was closed in June, so just a couple months ago, after the two parties reached a voluntary settlement agreement, which is what I mentioned. So the exact cost was actually $57,930.16. That was all in legal expenditures. The lawsuit used all these buzzwords about CRT, and it charged that the district's curriculum promoted indoctrinating students with critical race theory derived ideas. So this is another catch-all they do. They finally have been like, okay, you're right. CRT is a graduate level theory course. Clearly, it's not being taught in high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, but there's concepts that come from it. That's the new thing. It's coming from CRT. So it's bad. And they also alleged in the same ridiculous, accusation that teachers and staff were mandated to be trained in quote racist concepts. None of this is true, of course. So at the time, Lexington One was using something called EL Education Incorporated. It's a nonprofit that provides curriculum support and professional development to K through 12 schools across the country. According to Lexington One, the district did an internal review of EL education curriculum before that lawsuit was even filed. This just normal business, looking through contracts and things they're doing in the school, and in looking at it, they did not find anything that would have violated state law. But they decided to settle this lawsuit when it did come down the pike to avoid spending more time and money on it. Contesting it, the district said, would have meant investing time, attention, and even more taxpayer dollars. So they decided, let's just end this. In the agreement with the Freedom Caucus, the district agreed to end all agreements with EL Education. So that, nonprofit is now gone, and any other services related to them is canceled following the 2022-23 academic year. So come, school starting this month, they will no longer have that nonprofit providing any kind of support or information. So that's what really happened. That's what's really going on. Of course, the Freedom Caucus is trying to switch this around and say, oh no, we did it. We caught them. That's why they agreed. There's zero evidence that they broke state law. So that's not actually what happened. And one of the state reps in that caucus, RJ May, who is a Lexington Republican and is also the vice chairman of the Freedom Caucus, he sees this as a victory and said that, nope, the district was indeed breaking state law and it didn't even need to spend a single dime. Basically saying, hey, if they just, cut ties right off the bat, they wouldn't have had to pay any of these legal fees. Or if they just didn't hire them, obviously they wouldn't have been sued. But again, that, although partially true, it doesn't mean they did anything wrong. They were just trying to save time and money. So just ridiculous. I talked about it before, and it's so silly that they think they're doing good by suing these school districts, forcing them to spend thousands of dollars, even if they don't go through the entire legal process. They again nearly $60,000, and they didn't even go through like the entire process before deciding, let's just end this. This is not worth the headache. Let's just cut ties with this group. They didn't do anything wrong, but why waste more taxpayer dollars? Schools in this state are already horrible. So I certainly don't blame the schools for wanting to settle. Why waste more taxpayer money? Those things could go to much needed improvements in our schools. And it just goes to show that this Freedom Caucus doesn't care about the schools or children. They're trying to fight this culture war crap, and they're trying to get points on Twitter and Facebook and be, look what we did. We got that evil CRT. And it, again, if you just see headlines, school settles CRT lawsuit with Freedom Caucus, that if you don't look into the article at all, if you just see that or just kind of glaze over the details, of course you're going to think that, like, I guess they were right. I guess they were teaching these racist concepts in schools, and they're not. This whole thing is ridiculous, and it's wasting money that could be used for much more important things, and it needs to stop. Now, there is another lawsuit that's still out there. It's with Charleston County School District, so we'll see how that goes. And although I know I just said I would, these schools shouldn't waste money, if it's something as simple as just cutting ties with some third party that they contracted, just do it and be done with it. But I would love if a school district would fight this all the way to the end, because none of these school districts are doing what the Freedom Caucus alleges they are doing. I wish they could see it through so that the court case will end with the Freedom Caucus losing, and shows that they are just making up stuff. They wasted all this time and money, and it's not going to happen until a school district decides to fight. And I hope one does. Again, I know that I just said they should save their money, but selfishly, I would love if they would fight this and prove them wrong, and maybe that'll take some of their teeth away, and they'll stop these frivolous lawsuits that are just going to harm our schools in some fashion. They're not helping at all. All right, let's bounce over to some food and beverage news, some sad news to report. The Post and Courier was the first to have the story back on Tuesday, saying that Butcher and Bee, that long-standing restaurant in downtown Charleston, is closing. Their official last day will be September 3rd. And a bummer. They've been downtown at one of two locations for the last 12 years. So always sad to see a mainstay go, especially one that had really good food. So you have until September 3rd to get one last meal there. They will be open Thursday through Monday, and you can make reservations on resi.com if you're interested. According to the Post and Courier, the space will become a pop-up version of the Daily, which is the coffee shop cafe that the Butcher and Bee team first opened at 652 King Street back in 2014. So this pop-up version, which makes me think this isn't what they're planning on, permanently. I don't know how long they're going to do this pop-up or what their plans are after it gets going, but at least for the foreseeable future, after September 3rd, it'll take some time for them to, do some things to the property and switch some stuff up. But they anticipate that in September, they will reopen with this pop-up version of the Daily, the coffee shop cafe. You can also get like provisions there and, local stuff. So that's what's going to end up happening again, at least temporarily. Butcher and Bee, it actually first opened in 2011 at 654 King Street before moving to Morrison Drive, where it is currently located. That's 1085 Morrison Drive. And some of you may remember this if you were here in 2011, in the first couple years that Butcher and Bee was open on King Street. It was a pretty hip and happening spot. It was open late. They had kind of interesting hours where they'd be open for a little bit during the day. They'd close for a while, then reopen for late night. And it was a cool place that you could go grab a really delicious sandwich. People tend to, the only options are like pizza and fast food late at night. But this was a chance to get some really outstanding food. And they also were BYOB for a while. I don't know if it was the entire time they were on King Street, but for at least a little bit. So people could bring in like a bottle of wine and have some food there, or, wind down from a night of drinking or what have you. And, but yeah, it's a bummer to see it go. It had some really, really good food. Some of it was Middle Eastern inspired, so you had a chance to maybe try some different things, flavors, ingredients that you hadn't had before. But then they'd have some, fairly normal items on there as well. And for the most part, the menu had some mainstays, but it did switch up with some different seasonal options or limited items. And it was just really good. I always loved it. I don't think I ever had a bad meal there. Anything I tried was really, really good. And yeah, I'm certainly sad to see them go. Hopefully, I would like to see the location become a new concept. The Daily is a great coffee shop. I don't think we necessarily need one on Morrison when there's one on King Street already. But it is popular, so it might end up, who knows, maybe they'll decide to do that permanently. But I would love to see another restaurant, especially from this team, because Butcher and Bee was just so good. So sad to see it go, but we have until September 3rd to get, our last meals in. All right, next up, I always make this comment or something like it, but the Murdaugh stuff just never ends. It just doesn't. After the murder trial, you would think it would wind down a bit, and it just doesn't. And that's because there's more cases out there, including a fraud complaint that was made against Alex Murdaugh related to the death of his housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield. So you may remember she was the housekeeper for the Murdaughs. She fell, is the story. Originally, the Murdaughs said that she was tripped by the family's dogs, and she fell down some steps that were outside the Murdaughs' home. She suffered some injuries, including a head injury, and she ultimately died. Alec supposedly told Gloria Satterfield's kids, I'm going to take care of you. I have insurance on the property. This is what insurance is for. I'll get you the payout. Of course, the kids never saw that payout as Alec pocketed the money for himself. And now Nautilus Insurance Company has filed a fraud complaint after Alec has made conflicting comments about what happened that day and, saying he lied about this detail or left out that detail, and has basically told the Nautilus company, like, hey, if you want your money back, you got to go get it from the Satterfield kids because they have it now, because of an original suit where they're like, hey, this money's missing. They need it, which was just really gross that him and his team had done that. So the update to this is that the attorneys representing Gloria Satterfield's kids, they said that a judge recently denied Murdaugh's motion to rescind confessions he made regarding details surrounding the housekeeper's 2018 death. So that's good news. They're not letting Alec try to wiggle out of this by rescinding a confession, and this will continue to move forward. So we'll see exactly where this goes, but as far as the Satterfields, this is a good first step. All right, I want to remind you on this story that I am just the messenger. I didn't create this ranking. I didn't have anything to do with it. I am just passing along the information. But yes, Charleston has topped yet another list. This one from Livability.com. They released rankings of the top 25 best places to live in the Southeast, and Charleston checked in at number 16. Again, I did not make these rankings. I am just sharing them with you. So if people move here because of rankings like these, it is not my doing. I can't help it if the city wins these awards. Yes, I've already shared this online, and I've already gotten blowback. I don't think people are actually mad at me, but they'll say, stop sharing this. People, don't tell people how great Charleston is. We need people to stop moving here because it's driving up rent, and you know how it goes, and I get it. But yes, it did top another list, and I am just sharing that. This list was created using data collected from Livability's annual ranking of the top 100 best places to live, which actually celebrates the best small and mid-sized communities around the U.S. So they then broke it down by territory. The list is based on research into relocation trends, economic variables, and factors that influence the quality of life. Per Livability's emphasis on affordability, only cities that had a median home value of $500,000 or less were included in the final ranking. Little surprised Charleston made that cut. I would have thought the median home value was over that. But apparently, according to Livability, we're under the $500,000 median home value, and we're able to be included on this list. Don't know how long we'll be under that home value if their information is accurate, but we did apparently make the cut. So another award for Charleston, and once again, do not blame me. All right, so I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that the High Rise Drive Bar is going to be opening at the Charleston Hemp Collective on James Island. That is opening today, but it is not the only place that is now open in the Charleston area. Another highly anticipated concept called Beautiful South is now open on the Peninsula. This new restaurant comes from Dave and Tina Schutenberg, who are the couple behind Kwei, which is a restaurant on James Island attached to the Poorhouse. They say this new venture will celebrate the cuisines of both the Low Country and Southeastern China. I haven't eaten there yet. I haven't seen the menu yet, but I have seen pictures. There was some kind of media event or friends and family type night before they officially opened their doors, and the food looked delicious, much like the food at Kwei looks and tastes, by the way. Kwei is great. So we'll see, but it looks like it's going to be really good food. I'm excited to try it out. If you want to go, you can head over to their location. They're at 128 Columbus Street. They are on the bottom floor, right there on street level. It's the building they're in is the Guild, this like apartment condo type complex. So they are on the bottom level of that. It's on Columbus Street, as I mentioned, basically facing the alley, that place I've mentioned a bunch of times that has, arcade, bowling. It's a restaurant. It's a bar. It's basically across the street from that and the old supermarket. I think it was a Buy Low. I've already forgotten what was in that little plaza there, but that's the area of town we're talking about. I'm looking forward to trying it, but if you get there first, be sure to let me know. How was it? What did you get? What was tasty? What do you recommend? I'm very much looking forward to this new concept. And that'll do it for this episode of Holy City Center Radio. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Stay safe out there. Stay cool. Have fun. If you need plans, remember, go to holycitycenter.com/events, where you can find stuff going on in town. I want to thank Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every episode of Holy City Center Radio, and Cole Collins with LMC Sound System for producing this episode. If you want to support the podcast and all things Holy City Center, go to holycitycenter.com/shop, where you can pick up some merchandise, or head over to patreon.com/holycitycenter, where you can sign up for one of those support tiers. Enjoy your weekend. I'll talk to you all again on Monday. Until then, good night and good luck.